you?
Good. Are you back in town?
We are.
Good.
Yep. Our vet just called. Bill answered the phone. He was bringing the phone. I'm like, no, I wasn't sure how all this was going to work. So I logged on a little early.
Oh, yeah.
I had to take Grace in for her checkup today and Bobcat for his recheck. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So how's everything? You doing all right?
Pretty good.
Good. Good. Yeah, we got back, I guess Sunday. So,
Good. Okay.
yeah, but we'll catch up.
Oh, okay.
Are you at home?
Yes.
Okay, me too. Yeah, I see a picture in the background in a window. It didn't look like your office.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So the names at the top that don't have a picture, are those people that are just coming in like on a phone line or something? Like there's Ashley and an Edward Oswald?
I don't have my picture up there, Brooke.
No, oh, there you are. Hey, Ashley, I don't see your picture. I just see your name, Ashley Callahan, and I see Kristen. There you are. Hi.
So I'm gonna, and I think Mr. Oswald, he's in the second hearing. So
okay.
I'm going, if they don't turn their video off, we'll ask the panelists that are speaking towards the second case.
Okay.
To just kind of turn their video off until their case is up.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm new to this, so.
Learning experience. Thank you.
Excuse me 1 second. Good. Bill got that. I guess that's part of the fun of Zoom meetings when the phone rings in the background. Sorry about that. Hey, Sim.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Good to see you. Hey, Jason.
Hey, can y'all hear me? I can hear y'all fine.
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dave Savage. I'm a little new to this process. I hope everybody can hear me.
Welcome, Dave. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Good, thanks. Now we can put a face with a name. And we're so glad to have you on BZA. So I guess we're just waiting on Roy.
Yeah, I was trying to switch to my earbuds, my headphones, and everything's still coming out the speakers. It's fine. I was hoping I could get my earbuds on.
Are they better than speakers?
They're the same. I was just hoping I could get it to work, but I've had success with it before on Zoom, but it's not automatically working right now. So I'll dispense with it. But can y'all hear me okay? I mean, Brooke, I can hear you fine.
I'm good.
Sim, could you say something so I can?
I said I'm good.
Okay, good. I can hear you fine. David, I could hear you fine earlier. So welcome to BZA. Good to see your face.
Hey, Francis. Good to see you.
How are you? Good to see you all.
Brooke and everybody.
Good to see you, Sim. I like your headset.
Oh, This is one from work. This is one from work. So,
It's a nice
hey,
one.
Bo.
Hey, man. Hey, David.
Hey, Bo.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
I'm casual, so I'm not going to go on video.
Your hair's gotten so long. It's good to
Yeah.
see you.
I'm living off the grid, man. I'm off the grid. I'm gone.
Oh. As long as you're doing good.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Y'all look good. Francis,
Hello. How are
place,
you?
chill, in control.
Yep, we can't do without Francis, that's for sure.
Well, thank you.
We've got Roy. I see Roy there. Hey, Roy.
Hello.
Yay.
I'm having a hard time hearing. So let me figure out what's going on here.
Okay. Roy, I can hear everyone fairly clearly, but I could barely hear you. So we'll give you some time.
Oh, I found out why.
There you are. Hey, Roy.
Hello. I need to put on my headphones so the whole house doesn't hear us.
Perfect. I can hear you loud and clear now.
Great. And I can hear you too. Thank you.
Okay, I've got 7:02 p.m. And so Ashley, I believe, is our moderator. And I'm not sure who is in council chambers, if that's Kristen or Flannery. And so I'll wait to hear official word from Ashley, Flannery, or Kristen that we can start.
Hey, David, Jason, I think we're good to start.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, everybody. I would like to call to order the July 21st, 2020 public hearing of the Town of James Island Board of Zoning Appeals, also known as the BZA. And this is, as far as I know, our first ever virtual BZA hearing. So thank you for joining. Compliance with the Freedom of Information Act. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. 15 days prior to this hearing, a public hearing notice was printed in the Post and Courier. A sign was posted on the designated properties and a notice was mailed to the applicant or representative, property owner, and to the property owners within 300 feet of the applications, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and the news media that have requested declaration of our meeting have also been notified. The Freedom of Information Act does not require notification of anyone other than the applicant and the parties of interest. This time, we'll take a moment for introductions of the board members. My name is Jason Gregory. I am the chair, present chair for the BZA. We have member Brooke Lyon. Brooke, would you just wave for us?
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Brooke. We have BZA member Sim Parrish,
Hello.
BZA member Roy Smith,
Hello.
and then we have new BZA member David Savage. Welcome, David. That comprises our BZA committee. Staff members present are Kristen Crane, Ashley Callahan, Flannery Wood, Secretary to the BZA and Town Clerk Francis Simmons. Hello, Francis. And then our Town Attorney, Bo Wilson. At this time, I'll ask if there are any other council members or staff members of the town in council chambers. If you would you please introduce yourself? And council chambers is on mute right now.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, Mark Johnson, Public Works Director, Town of James Island.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any town council members present, either in chambers or virtually on Zoom?
Jason, it looks like we have Councilman Garrett Milliken as an attendee, along with City Councilwoman Carol Jackson.
Okay. Thank you, Garrett, and thank you, Carol, for your attendance. Okay, we'll review the summary and rulings from the November 19th, 2019 meeting. At the November 19th, 2019 BZA meeting, which was case BZA V-10-19-024, that case was heard and disapproved. Board members, the transcripts for the November 19th, 2019 meeting, the transcript was included in your packets. Are there any changes? If not, may I have a motion to approve and a second?
I so
Vote.
moved.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion to accept the meeting minutes from Brooke and a second from Sim. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none.
Hold-
In favor?
for a minute, when I read the meetings that I was given, I obviously wasn't at that meeting, but I'm looking at page 6. And I think in the third paragraph, third sentence, that what was meant to be said is the request is that the applicant did not, and I think missing is the word, meet the requirements of the town of James Island.
I agree.
I agree.
Done.
Page 6, Jason?
Yes, yes.
Third paragraph, and I think it's the third line. I think missing is the word meet, did not meet.
Okay, I agree. So noted. Ms. Simmons, will you also make note of that, of the minutes?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, we'll make note of that correction. Any other corrections for the minutes? Okay, hearing none, would you please signal aye? And I'd like ask that you do it one at a time because with Zoom, we cannot do it all at the same time. So we'll just go one at a time. Brooke, would you indicate your vote?
Aye.
Sim?
Aye.
David?
I wasn't there, but I.
Roy?
Aye.
And I for myself. So the minutes are unanimously approved by the BZA, and we'll make the correction as noted by Mr. Savage. Okay, thank you all. Okay, at this time, I would like to explain to the public the workings of the BZA. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body established to interpret and grant relief from the zoning and land development regulations. Ordinance. The Board of Zoning Appeals has jurisdiction over 3 types of cases: appeals, variances, and special exceptions. Variances. Variances may be granted when strict application of the zoning ordinance would cause an unnecessary hardship. This board's actions.
Jason, you froze.
How about now?
Good.
Okay. I'm discussing variances. This board,
Everybody froze.
No one's freezing on my end.
y'all are okay on my end. Sim, that must be it on your.
We're all okay here.
You're all okay here?
Okay. This board's actions must be based on specific standards as contained in the South Carolina Local Government Planning Enabling Act of 1994 in the Town of James Island Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. Special exceptions. An exception is issued by the BZA authoring a particular use in a specified location within a zoning district upon demonstrating that such use complies with all the conditions and standards specified by the Town of James Island Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. A simple majority of the quorum is present. A simple majority of the quorum present is required to grant a variance and a special exception. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding, and we can take no action that will negate their jurisdiction over your property. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If the members of the BZA feel the need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written information submitted to the staff by the applicant or their agent for each case. This information is now considered to be evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. Also, we have been presented data assembled by the staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the effect on surrounding property. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny your request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. If an applicant's request is disapproved and they wish to appeal the decision of this board concerning their case, appeals must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that the appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of the board is mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives the court of the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made, either in writing or orally. Because of this, each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in. In order to expedite the procedure, those wishing to speak and are in person at the town hall, anyone who is in the council chambers at town hall, will you please stand as a group? And Mr. Wilson, our town lawyer, will administer the oath at this time to those who are present physically in council chambers. Mr. Wilson, I hand it over to you for the swearing in.
Thank you, Chairman. Please raise your right hand. Everyone who plans to testify. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You are sworn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would also like to add, we will have a slightly different process for swearing in of folks that are either on the Zoom video conference or have called in via telephone with Zoom. So each person who would like to speak via the Zoom platform will be called to be sworn in one by one during that portion of the meeting. If you would like to address the board and you are participating by Zoom, please use the chat function at this time to state your name, which case you are speaking about, and whether you are in support or opposition. And you will be called on to speak and be sworn in one at a time at the appropriate time when we get to that point during the hearing. If anyone has called in but is not on the video conference, you will be recognized by your phone number and called upon when the time comes. So please, if you're on Zoom, go ahead and use the chat function and state if you wish to speak, the case you wish to speak for, and then simply state whether you are for or against. And then when the appropriate time comes, we will call on your name. So that's our role, is the chat function. I should now call each case by file number. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case. Staff will have unlimited time. I shall then call the applicant to address the case. Each applicant will be limited to 10 minutes. The applicant shall please state their name and current address for the record before presenting testimony. I will then ask for all those speaking either in support or against the case that signed up via the chat function on Zoom, and that they shall follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and being sworn in by our attorney. And each person speaking from the public for or against, each are limited to 2 minutes. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to any opposition, and the applicant's reply to the opposition will be limited to 2 minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application stating specific findings of fact and conclusions of law. All right, tonight we will hear one tonight we'll hear one variance request and one special exception request. These requests must meet all requirements or criteria in the ordinance. And we will now hear case BZAV -6-20-025. And at this time, I will hand the Zoom controls over to staff, Kristen Crane.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen and go through the presentation like we normally do. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Just a second. Hey, Ashley, can I share my screen, please? Thanks. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, the applicant, Dr. Frederick, is requesting a variance for the reduction of the 10-foot required interior side setback by 5.2 feet to 4.8 feet for the addition of living space onto an existing residence in the low-density suburban residential zoning district at 1514 Patterson Avenue. Here is a radius map with the subject property in yellow. Adjacent properties to the north, south, and west are also in the RSL zoning district and are in the town of James Island's jurisdiction. Property to the east is single family in nature and is in the city of Charleston. So these two right here in the city of Charleston. The town of James Island zoning and land development regulations, section 153.070 states that all development in the RSL district shall be subject to the following density, intensity, and dimensional standards. So the interior side setbacks are to be 10 feet. Here's an aerial with the subject property in red. The subject property is 0.17 acres in size and contains one single family home that was constructed in 1973 per Charleston County records. The current property owner purchased the property in November of 1978. And here is a site plan of the proposed improvements. Where you see this line right here, that would be where the 10-foot setback line would be. So this would be the new addition right here, matching up with the already encroaching. According to the applicant's letter of intent, she requests a variance for the construction of a small, approximately 170 square feet, 16 feet by 10 feet 9 inches addition to my home. The addition will go a few feet over the setback on the west side of my house, where there was already constructed a part of the house dating from around 1973. The present available living area is approximately 10 feet by 7.5 feet, and the dining area is 4 feet by 7 feet. The addition will serve as a living room of decent, if small, proportions, and the present tiny living room will become a proper dining room. So I'll just flip through some pictures. Here's the subject property. So the addition would be right here. Another picture of the subject property. Adjacent properties. Looking up and down Patterson Avenue. According to section 153.049F of the ordinance, The board has the authority to hear and decide appeals for zoning variance when strict application of the provisions of this ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. A zoning variance may be granted in an individual case of unnecessary hardship if the board makes and explains in writing the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Response, there may be extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this piece of property, including the uncentered positioning of the home on the lot and the small size of the lot. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Response, these conditions may not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Of the 29 homes in a 300-foot radius of the subject property, only 4 are of equal or lesser size and square footage. Additionally, in the letter of intent, the applicant states that the other houses on the block are centered or very nearly centered on their lots, so they have no need to go over a setback. C, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Response, the application of section 153.070 of the ordinance to the subject property may unreasonably restrict future improvements to the property due to the existing layout of the current home. The applicant mentions in her letter of intent that it is impossible to build on the east side of the house as there are 2 bedrooms in the bathroom that obstruct any possible access to a living room. Positioning on the west allows a small living room. D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Response, the character of the zoning district should not be harmed, and the authorization of the variance should not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property. The rear portion of the home already sits 4.8 feet from the interior side property line, and the letter of intent states the applicant has mentioned it to others in my neighborhood, on my street, and the street behind me inland. No one has objected in any way. Indeed, they encourage me to undertake the addition. E, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance to the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. Response, the variance does not allow a use that is not permitted in the zoning district, nor does it extend physically a non-conforming use of land or change the zoning district boundaries. F, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. In response, the need for the variance may not be the result of the applicant's own actions due to the pre-existing location and configuration of the home. The letter of intent states that the applicant did not build the house that close to the setback. That part of the house is non-conforming, but I neither built it that way nor caused the reason for the variance. And G, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of this ordinance. In response, the granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of this ordinance. So the board may approve with conditions, or deny this case based on the findings of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant owner shall install tree barricades around the grand trees on the property as described in section 153.334 of the ordinance throughout the duration of construction. And number 2, prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements, the applicant owner shall provide documentation that the grand trees on the subject parcel have been pruned and fertilized as recommended by a certified arborist in order to mitigate potential damage to the trees caused by construction. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Are there any questions for staff from the BZA members at this time?
I'd like to, sorry, Jason. There was an error in the staff review under the action. The action says the request is for an accessory structure setback for a new single family home. Sorry. It should be changed for 10-foot interior side setback for the addition of living space onto an existing residence. It was correct in the first paragraph, just not in the action paragraph.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen, for that. Okay, and with that, any questions for staff from BZA?
I don't have any.
No.
Okay. I can stop sharing my screen so that way if anybody has anything to say, is that okay?
That's fine.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
Roy, any questions?
I'm interested to hear what testimony other people may want to give, and take that into consideration. I really don't have questions of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. David, any question of staff before we move on?
If they may know, one of the recommendations is that the grand trees be pruned. I'm also cognizant of the fact that this applicant is 70 years of age. Do we know how many grand trees are there? And if the board is inclined to approve with conditions, is there something a little less onerous in the event there are 5 or 6 grand trees far out of the construction area that would have made this cost prohibitive? You may or may not know.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure how many grand trees are on the site. If it was approved, then we would submit a more detailed site plan, and we wouldn't ask, if construction's only going to be on this side, then, during the site plan review process, we wouldn't ask for her to have to, put any tree protection or mitigate the ones that are on the right side of the property that wouldn't be affected.
Thank you. My last question is, I saw the number of letters of neighbors in support. Did I miss any letters that oppose this? I did not see any.
No, I didn't get any opposition to this case.
Mr. Gregory, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both. Before we move on to the applicant, last call from BZA on questions for staff. Okay, hearing none, is the applicant present? And if the applicant is present, she will have a 10-minute limit. Hello, and if I presume that's the applicant and council chambers are unmuted, so please just state your name again for the record, and the floor is yours.
Right, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to appear here, and thank you to all the chair and all the members of the board. My name is Ellen Lorraine Friedrich. I'm a mostly retired professor of modern classical languages. I am 70, and so building up in this case isn't particularly practical. I feel great, but one never knows when I'm a year or two older, and so on and so forth. It's also not a good option, I believe, for the neighborhood, because all the houses on Patterson, that long block on which I live, are just one story. There is one house that has a partial second story. Now, closer to the marsh, there are some houses that are 2 and sort of 3 stories high, but certainly in our block, they're only 1 story high. Trying to think of everything I want to say, and I have some notes here. I bought the house, one of the smallest houses, as I think Ms. Crane said, in 1978, and it's on about 1/6 of an acre. It's smaller than the normal lots on James Island. And I've sort of had to make do with my small living area because I have neither a living room nor a dining room properly. I have a living room with a couch, but no room for a chair, and a table that's pushed up against the window so I can get to the kitchen. I have 6 nieces who want to visit with their husbands and their children, and we don't have a place really to sit or table we can sit around. So the idea is to build this small addition that can serve as a sitting room, living room, and then almost a larger dining room, but also a bit of an entryway, which I don't have properly now. You probably can't see it, but I drew, I'm going to draw. close. I don't know if you can see it, but I drew the entryway. You can't even open the door all the way because it backs up to a closet, a coat closet. It's sort of crazy. And then the couch is over here. I put in sort of a stool that I put there somewhere. If someone comes to visit, I can sit them on the couch and me on the stool. And then the table backed up here. And what was I going to say? Oh, and so the access to the hall and to the entrance, one has to go around everything. It's just sort of crazy. So anyway, I'm looking forward, if possible, to having a more or less proper living room and a dining area. My neighbor to the east, Bruce Emery, who's actually in the city, he said he wrote last week, but I don't think anybody got anything, has a house built at the same time, similar size. He and his wife chose to have a living room. They have never had a dining room table. They just eat in the living room. So a couple of these houses in the neighborhood really are small. Let me see what else. Oh, so about a year ago, I came up with the idea of this small addition and began talking to my neighbors. I've been talking to them continuously. Dr. Sarah Stender, who is Catty Corner, wrote a letter of support. Dan Volpe, who lives in front of me, did. And of course, as I said, Mr. Bruce Emery, who lives to my east, apparently they didn't get the email or the letter, whatever he says he sent last week. Now, my neighbor to the west, who is on the side of the small addition that I'd like to put in, is very reserved, very private, very shy. I've spoken to her repeatedly. She keeps saying, you can do anything you want. And I said, well, not exactly, and try to explain the process to her. She has said, well, it doesn't concern me. I'm not worried. Go ahead and do it. And so I said, okay, I'll go through the steps and see if I can. In the past months, I've spoken to neighbors up and down Patterson in that big circle there. I've spoken to neighbors on Inland and also on Bermuda. And everyone has said fine. And to many of them, I've had to explain. They keep saying, why can't you just do it? So I've explained the process, which I think is good information for them to know. As was mentioned in my application and by Mrs. Crane, the house was built in the 70s. There's some different dates out there. I bought it in 78. When I bought it, that section of the house, although I didn't realize, I didn't know the measurements, was already over the setback by about 5 feet. It's actually different at the end as it is at the front of the house. It's a little less over the setback, but at any rate, I would be bringing it forward so the facade would be continuous and I hope more appealing than it is right now with that sort of jetty part there. So the builder built it uncentered, which is unfortunate. On the east, as I've said, are 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and I won't go through the bathroom. It's the only bathroom in the house to get to any supposed living area. And of course, I'd like it closer to the kitchen and to the dining room, nor can I give up either of those bedrooms. I think that's just about all. I'd like to increase the livability of my house, improve the look of the front of it. So I'm requesting this variance. I appreciate your hearing me out, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Friedrich. Are there any questions for the applicant from the BZA members at this time?
I do have some questions. I just wanted to confirm a few things with you, ma'am, and that is most of the houses in the neighborhood are centered on the lot. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I've studied them quite a bit. I walk and run in the evenings. So I look at them. There are a few that might be a little off center. Sometimes it's hard to tell because it looks like they were originally centered and they have added on. As you know, that's one of the oldest neighborhoods on James Island. But absolutely, if you go through the neighborhood, it's more obvious than it is from any overhead view. But they are centered, yes.
Most of them, yes. Thank you. And so so your property is maybe different from most of them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's also set back only about 5 feet, 6 feet maybe, then the line that all the rest of them line up, you can see them right down there, ding, 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 ding. And people often say when they're coming to see me, I missed your house. I zipped right by because it's also set back just a little more than the other houses. So it really is different.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
I
you.
have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Any other questions from BZA?
I'm good.
Okay, very good. Then at this time, I guess we will enter into the public forum and is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? And we will start first. We will start first with council chambers. Is anyone present in council chambers who would like to speak in support of this request?
There's no one present in council chambers.
Okay. And then at this time, Ashley, do you have anyone on the roll on the chat feature that would like to speak in support of the request?
We do. We have two that have signed up to speak in support. The first person is Ms. Sarah Stender, and I will give her the permission to talk at this time.
Okay, Ms. Stender, the floor is yours, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that Ellen's house is almost unlivable right now, as small as it is, and she would be much more comfortable. And she's preparing to put a new roof over the entire house, which the house desperately needs. This will be a great improvement for the neighborhood, but even more important, it will be a great improvement to her personal life in her now later years. And I cannot tell you how much I support her diligence in trying to go through the proper channels. We had a house in this that was zoned to the city of Charleston that was built. They built 3 monstrosities on one piece of property that should have been one house, and they went through no channels, and they asked no neighbor what we thought about it. It's severely impacted the wildlife of our community. It's hurt the neighbors all around, and this is just the opposite with Dr. Friedrich. She has just gone the extra mile to do everything properly, to be sensitive to her neighbors, at the same time having needs of her own that have not been met. So I am here to say I really heartily support this and do so hope that she will not be restricted in what she's trying to do. I do not believe that the trees are going to be hurt. She's very much a naturalist. She loves the natural environment. And I think she will do that whether she's forced to or not, that she will cultivate the property and support it. So I just support it in every way that I can. And I did write a letter too, a 2-page letter to you. So thank you for the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman.
Yes.
Chairman, this is Bo Wilson, if I may interrupt. Are we going to swear the witness, each witness, before they give testimony, before or against?
Bo, you will. We should have done that. Are you able to, I guess, swear Miss Stender in, I guess?
Sure.
Okay.
I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Sarah Stender, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. I'm Ellen's neighbor today.
Okay, well, for the record, Ms. Stender, your testimony was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Okay, at this time, I believe, Ashley, did you have someone else available on the roll?
I do. City Councilwoman Carol Jackson has signed in to speak in support, and she is now able to speak.
Okay, Ms. Jackson, the floor is yours, and you have up to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Do you want me to swear the witness, Jason?
Yes, Bo, thanks. Please swear the witness.
It's clearly the most boring job in the room. Sorry that we can't swear everyone at one time, but feature being what it is. Ms. Jackson, do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I appreciate just the opportunity to support. I am a neighbor. Unfortunately, I don't have the pleasure of knowing Dr. Frederick, but I do know her property. So as a neighbor, I live at 1461 Patterson Avenue, and I am in full support of her application for a west side lot variance on her property. I agree with all the responses to the criteria that the board will use to determine the reasons this variance is appropriate and the right thing to do for this small lot and off-center footprint that will simply fill out the small section of footprint already built by an earlier owner. So I appreciate that the testimony of her neighbor who watched her go through the process. Off the record, I do have to agree that the contrast to that are the 3 properties that went on at the top of Bermuda. And I do thank you for your favorable consideration in advance of this simple request by our neighbor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ashley, do we have anyone else on the roll to speak in support?
No, Jason, we do not.
Okay, thank you. At this time, is there anyone, and we'll start with council chambers first. Is there anyone physically in council chambers who wishes to speak in opposition to this request?
There's no one present in council chambers that wants to speak in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone on the roll for Zoom that would like to speak in opposition to this request?
We do not.
Okay, thanks. At this time, I would like to just state for the record that BZA members received via email through staff 3 letters of support for this request and 0 letters against this request. 0 letters against this request. Okay, I guess at this point, the applicant does have 2 minutes for a rebuttal, but you may use the 2 minutes if you wish, and please hit unmute.
Yes, can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say I totally forgot to address the question of the trees. About a year ago, as I started this process, I had an elevation done, I had a survey done with the tree canopies. There is one, only one, unless some tree has grown enormously. There's one that I believe qualifies as a grand tree. It is on my side of the property line and the easement to the street. So it's sort of on both of them, but I will absolutely protect it. That, you know, I call it the son of Hugo because Hugo took out the other one and this one grew up in its place. So Hugo is the other one. This is the son of Hugo, but it is between, you know, my house and the easement. So that's just the only thing I wanted to clarify, unless there's something else somebody needs or wants to hear.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'm going to close the hearing to the public, and I will ask for a motion from the board, and we need a second in order to have a discussion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. This is Brooke. I'll make a motion to approve the variance with conditions set forth by staff.
Second.
I second. Mr. Savage, second first.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with the conditions set forth by Brooke, set forth by staff. The motion was brought forth by Brooke, seconded by David. So now we are open for discussion. So please, floor is open to BZA members.
Could Kristen read the conditions again?
I have them right here, Sim. Condition 1 is the applicant owner shall install tree barricades around grand trees on the property as described in the ordinance throughout the duration of construction. And condition number 2, prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvement, the applicant owner shall provide documentation that the grand trees on the subject parcel have been pruned and fertilized as recommended by a certified arborist.
Thank you, sir.
I will be voting to approve my motion. I feel that the applicant has met all the criteria set forth. I did ride by the property today, and there's already the part sticking out, if you will, and this will be, as everyone has stated, a huge improvement for her and the neighborhood. And most importantly, though, it does meet the criteria that is set forth for BZA.
I would like to agree with Ms. Lyon, and I would vote for this also because not only does it simply meet all of the requirements, which are numerous, but it also will be a huge improvement for not only the applicant, but for the entire neighborhood and for James Island. So it's a plus for everyone.
This is David Savage. I concur with Ms. Lyon and Mr. Smith in their analysis.
I agree with, this is Sim Parrish. I agree with all the comments that were made in favor of the request.
I agree with the BZA members. I feel that the applicant's letter clearly addressed all the issues that we are required to analyze as it relates to the variance, that it is an extraordinary and exceptional condition because it's a very small property. The house is not centered. A part of the existing house already did encroach on the setback, and this house and property existed before our town existed. That condition was not created by the applicant's own doing. And I do agree that it will be an improvement to the area and to the property. So I agree as well with everyone. With that, is there any further discussion before we call for a vote?
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
All right, Ms. Simmons, will you, we'll do it by roll, please, and I'll let you lead the roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Lyon,
Yes.
Commissioner Parrish,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Gregory.
Yes. Okay, with that, the motion unanimously passes. Motion that passed was the Board of Zoning Appeals approves case BZA v 6-20, which is a variance for the reduction of a 10-foot required interior side setback by 5.2 feet to 4.8 feet for the addition of living space onto an existing residence in the RSL zoning district located at 1514 Patterson Avenue with conditions, the two conditions being: one, the applicant owner shall install tree barricades around the grand trees on the property as described in the ordinance throughout the duration of construction, and two, prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements, the applicant owner shall provide documentation that the grand trees on the subject parcel have been pruned and fertilized as recommended by a certified arborist. And the legal reasoning for the board choosing and approving this motion was that it met the criteria set forth, the 7 criteria set forth by our ordinance. Okay, thank you. And with that, we will move on to the second case. And if we can take just a moment, I'd like to just organize my notes here in front of me before we move on to the second case. Okay. We will now hear the second case of tonight, which is case number BZAS-6-20-019. And with that, Kristen, I will give the floor to you for the staff review. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to share this PowerPoint. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. The applicant, Mr. Branch of Earth Source Engineering, representing Mike Roper, the owner of Time to Shine Car Wash, is requesting a special exception for the placement of an express service automatic car wash in the Community Commercial District and the Folly Road Corridor Overlay Zoning District in the South Village area at 1312 and 1316 Folly Road. So here is a map of the South Village area of Folly Road. This is Fort Johnson, and these two smaller pink parcels are the subject properties. The overlay district has future land use recommendations for the subject properties as neighborhood commercial. Adjacent property to the north and northwest is also in the community commercial zoning district and in the town of James Island's jurisdiction. Adjacent property to the south and west are zoned general business and are in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. And to the east are residential properties in the town of James Island. And I'd like to add that the staff review, also the city of Charleston. This white parcel behind this is in the city of Charleston. The gray is the town of James Island.
Thank you, Kristen. I had that question.
Okay, good. I'm sure there's more. I'll go ahead and switch to the radius map that has building outlines. The adjacent general business zone property to the south is residential in nature, while the adjacent general business zone parcels to the west consist of a convenience store, gas station, and financial services. Other uses within 300 feet of the subject properties include religious assembly, vehicle repair, and residential uses. The town of James Island zoning and land development regulations, Folly Road Corridor Overlay Zoning District, South Village, section 153.093I2 states that uses requiring special exception are vehicle storage, boat and RV storage, bar or lounge, consumer vehicle repair, fast food restaurant, gasoline service stations with or without convenience stores, indoor recreation and entertainment, and vehicle service. So we'll go to an aerial, 1312 and 1316 Folly Road. And here's the site plan that was included in your packets. In the letter of intent, the applicant explains the intent for this project is to offer a viable commercial development plan to the town of James Island while limiting impacts to the natural features of the site, while also maximizing screening to the two rear residential properties. And I'll just go through some pictures. Oops. This was the consignment store. The previous tenant was the consignment. And I believe this was Paw Puri, dog grooming and boarding. Previously, here's some more pictures of the subject properties. Adjacent properties. Across the street. And Folly Road. According to section 153.045E, special exceptions approval criteria of the town of James Island zoning and land development regulations ordinance, special exceptions may be approved only if the board finds that the proposed use A, is consistent with the recommendations contained in the town of James Island comprehensive plan and the character of the underlying zoning district, purpose and intent. Response. The town of James Island comprehensive plan future land use category states the neighborhood commercial future land use category is intended to allow office uses and neighborhood oriented commercial uses that serve the residential population of the town and that do not negatively impact the surrounding community. However, a land use strategy listed in the comprehensive plan is to encourage commercial structures that are in character with the suburban nature of the area, while a land use element need is listed as encouraging sensitive and sustainable development practices. Additionally, the South Village area of the overlay states that the area is intended to be developed with less intense commercial development than the commercial core area, with low intensive development on the east side of Folly Road. Therefore, this application may not be consistent with the town of James Island comprehensive plan as implemented through the Community Commercial District and the Folly Road Corridor Overlay Zoning District. B, is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. Response, the proposed use may be compatible with other uses within 300 feet of the subject property to the north, south, and west, including a gas station, convenience store, and 2 vehicle repair shops, but the subject property is bordered by residential property to the east. C, adequate provision is made for such items as setbacks, buffering, including fences and/or landscaping, to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors. Response, a comprehensive landscaping plan is required for buffer areas. Additionally, the applicant's representative states that there will be installation of a 6-foot opaque screening fence offset from the property line with plant material between the fence and the neighboring residential lots to provide an aesthetic appeal to the fence, which will serve as a visual screen. However, the proposed site plan does not show protection from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, for the residential properties to the east.
Kristen, I'm sorry to disturb you, but I missed the last little bit. Could you back up like one paragraph or so and explain what you just said again? Sorry.
So you want me to start at number C, maybe?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the criteria is that adequate provision is made for such items as setbacks, buffering, including fences and/or landscaping, to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors. Response, a comprehensive landscaping plan is required for buffer areas. Additionally, the applicant's representative states that there will be installation of a 6-foot opaque screening fence offset from the property line with plant material between the fence and the neighboring residential lots to provide an aesthetic appeal to the fence, which will serve as a visual screen.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have bothered you, but go ahead now.
Okay.
You did exact. I'm sorry, but I couldn't see it and I couldn't pull it up. I'll shut up now.
Okay.
Please proceed. I see it now.
Okay. I'll just finish that sentence again just to complete it.
Thank you.
However, the proposed site plan does not show protection from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, for the residential properties to the east. Criteria D, where applicable, will be developed in a way that will preserve and incorporate any important natural features. In response, the applicant is working with a certified arborist to preserve grand trees on the property, which the letter of intent addresses. All grand trees to be saved on site along with all other significant trees where possible. Any encroachment into drip lines of trees to be reviewed and managed and mitigated by a certified arborist who will be hired to ensure the health of the trees before, during, and after construction. The applicant also states that development has been thoughtfully laid out with strategic building placement, utilization of LID design features, which will be fully engineered, including pervious, permeable parking, and use of native landscape, among other methods. And criteria E, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, or site plan review requirements of this ordinance. And the response is this applicant is in the process to ensure compliance with the applicable regulations. And F, vehicular traffic and pedestrian movement on adjacent roads shall not be hindered or endangered. And the response is the applicant states in their letter of intent that site design to ensure no impact to traffic along Folly Road. Site as shown on the exhibit is designed to ensure maximum on-site staging to ensure cars will never back up into the right of way. In addition, the applicant also states an 8-foot activity path to be installed along Folly Road to provide a start to the new Folly Road pedestrian corridor improvements. And so we'll get to the action. The Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions or deny this case based on the findings of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following conditions. Number one, prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements, the applicant owner shall install tree barricades, excuse me, around the grand and protected trees on the property as described in section 153.334 of the ordinance. Number two, the width of the 8-foot multi-use path on the submitted site plan shall be increased as much as possible while maintaining landscape separation from the road and maintaining at least one row of vegetative buffering between the building and the path. Number three, a plan to expand stacking spaces in the event of traffic, parking, and stacking congestion shall be submitted and approved by the town prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements. Number four, an 8-foot wooden privacy fence shall be installed along the entire rear perimeter and anywhere fence is labeled on the submitted site plan. Number five, architectural plans shall be subject to the discretion of the town as to whether architectural guidelines and development standards have been followed. Number six, the site plan is subject to all supplemental stormwater design standards adopted by the town of James Island. Number seven, the special exception for vehicle service use of automatic express car wash is contingent on the submittal and the approval of the lot line abandonment by planning department staff. And number eight, commercial uses shall be limited to the hours between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Mhm.
At this time, are there any questions for Kristen from BZA members?
I had one question in section E. What is the LID design?
It's low impact development. There's a manual for that type of development. It just includes pervious pavement and just low impact guidelines in general.
Okay. That's the first time I've heard that come up in a BZA, so that's why I asked.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Thank you. Ms. Crane, this application is a little more complicated than the other, and we're going to have to view the application in light of the various plans that the town has, and specifically with regard to the Rethink Folly Road Management Plan, the guidepost as to green with regard to tree preservation. I want to make sure that my understanding of the applicant's submission matches the town's. Can you go back to slide number 24 and post that up? I think that's the photograph on the left side. Those appear to be a row of various trees that that transverse both lots, right on Folly Road.
Mm-hmm.
And would you go to the applicant's site plan proposal? When I printed my page, it was on an 8x12 page. I'm looking at this proposal and I was trying to figure out what, if any, trees would be saved or what trees would be impacted. If I understand it, the line of trees that were shown in photograph number 24 would be removed, but I can't tell if those are small bushes or shrubbery that border Folly Road. What is your understanding of what that vegetation is? I just couldn't read it.
Oh, in the buffer?
Move your cursor a little more to the left.
Right over here?
Yes, ma'am.
So this right here would be probably a canopy tree. There's, several required in the buffer, and these would be shrubs. Was that your question?
I think it does. In other words, the existing trees would be removed in favor of the shrubs and whatever canopy trees are shown on this site plan. I'm just trying to find out what the town's understanding is.
It looks like we haven't done a comprehensive landscaping plan yet. That will come during the full site plan review. So, probably those are, don't look to be grand trees. So they have to keep a minimum number of trees per acre. So that will be gone over during the landscaping plan. I'm not exactly sure about those specific trees just yet, but I know they're not grand trees.
All right. That's all the question I had for the staff.
This is Sim. I have a question.
Mhm.
Looking at the proposed plan, what is the setback from the street from Folly Road to the front of the building? That looks rather close to me.
Yeah.
Based on all the other establishments on Folly Road, it looks like it's going to be right up on the road itself.
Yes.
Is there a minimum or
I believe it's
setback?
15 feet, but with the Rethink Folly Road Complete Streets Plan and the Folly Road Overlay Plan, the goal is to get all of the buildings up close to the street to create more of a slowdown for traffic, more of a downtown feel with the parking in the back. So we actually require the buildings to be closer to the street.
But did I see an 8 foot plus 8 foot circulation zone plus a 6 foot buffer zone? So 8 plus 6 is 14 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's 14 feet, Sam.
That's still not very much space.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I do have another question.
Please proceed, David.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. As I'm looking at this too, there appears to be only one point of entrance and exit on this site plan. Do I see that correctly at the bottom portion?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to add, Sam, it's 14 feet and over half of it is concrete.
Brooke, any questions for staff?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Kristen, I do have two questions for you. The first one is, can you really tell me the approximate bounds of the South Village area of the Folly Road Corridor Overlay District? I'm trying to just understand, is this in the middle, on the edge? Where does this lie within the bounds of the South Village area?
So I pulled up this map is the South Village area. So you can see on the north end is Prescott Street. That's where the new fire station is being built. And this is the Catholic Church. And then the south bounds are down here, a few parcels down from Signal Point Road. That's Berclair.
Is that like near Bohemian Bull and the John Harris Body Shop?
Yes, I think Berclair comes straight out. This might be Bohemian Bull and maybe this is the new body shop.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, the other question I have for you.
Yes.
In some of the letters that were sent via email and provided to us, mention about other car washes that have been approved by other jurisdictions.
Right.
In the same vicinity. Have other car washes been approved and how many?
In the city of Charleston, there are 2 that haven't been built that are in the approval process. The one Autobell car wash is at 1285 Folly Road, which is in the Food Lion Shopping Center. That one is the furthest through the process. I think it only has one more step to go. It's already been through technical TRC, the review committee through the city. And then the other one is at 1325 Folly Road. That one's Finn's. It's a AAA car wash.
Use your cursor, please, on the map, if you would. That would assist
Okay.
me.
So the Auto Bell one I was just referring to, this is the Food Lion Shopping Center. So it would be right in here, I believe. And these are the subject properties. So right here, and then the AAA Finn's Car Wash at 1325 would be right here. That one has a few more steps to go. It hasn't gone through TRC yet with the city, but they have submitted for their construction activity permit and some other things, but they haven't gone through quite as far as the Autobell one at the Food Line Shopping Center.
So Kristen, the Finn's car wash, is that going right next to Blue Water? The gas station?
No,
It's gonna go, Finn's is over.
the bank is between Finn's.
It's between Publix and this, or it's between the South Carolina Federal Credit Union and the new entrance to Publix.
Okay.
Kristen, I have one more follow-up question on that then, and I know we're not all fully educated on the city's processes, but you're a neighbor of ours on Folly. Is that then your understanding that since these are either going through TRC or have permits submitted for those properties in the city, then is a like special exception or a variance not required through the city?
I don't believe so. That side of the road is a little more commercial oriented. And so, no, I don't think they don't have to go through BZA or that kind of public process in the city of Charleston.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. That's all the questions I have. Any other questions?
I did have another quick question. On the site plan, the storm basin area, Kristen, is that going to be just like a ditch or a pretty pond, lake? What is that? Is it going to take some of the water and soap suds or rainwater? What's the plan for that?
If you don't mind, I'd like to defer to the applicant.
Okay, no worries.
That's a little technical, and I'm not exactly sure what the plan is just yet. I mean, they'll have to go through the full stormwater review process. Since it's over an acre, they'll have a little more stringent review. So they might.
Can I mention that I would like to caution the applicant to be extremely honest about what they plan to do with that that portion of the site, because our decision may be dependent upon what they do, what they say they're going to do. And if they don't do it, then there may be a problem.
Any other questions? David, were you going to ask a question, Kristen?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, your question has triggered another for mine. Kristen, can you go back to slide number 15, please?
Yes. On my cursor.
All right, I see the two subject properties. Put the cursor there. And explain for me again, I thought there might be one that was approved close to Blue Water. It may not be directly across the street, but it would be where, ma'am?
Right here.
Very good. And the other would be where?
Right here.
So if the applicants is approved, and if these two are approved within a 300-foot radius, there would be 3 car washes in close proximity to this intersection?
Let me just look at the.
Yes.
Almost.
Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, 1.2 miles up Folly Road at the intersection of Camp and Folly, there are presently 2 operational car washes. Are they in the city as well?
The ones at the corner of Folly and Camp.
Yes, ma'am.
Those 2 are in the town of James Island.
All right.
But
So-
they don't have car washes.
But there's even one more further up on Folly Road.
Well, I just want to make sure I had an appreciation. So at least with
Sure, there are
regard,
at least 3 more
Yeah.
already operational.
sure. So in this Folly Road corridor, we're going to have, at least in the town, there'll be the 2 that are existing. The applicant proposes to put 1 up, and then there's going to be basically 2 across the street from it, all on this in less than a mile and a half. Do I have the geography correct?
Yes, there's actually 3 in the town, and I can't speak for the city. I'm not sure how many more are in the city's jurisdiction, but there are 3 car washes in the town. One is on the same side of the road in the Blue Water gas station a little further down. That's one you drive through. And then there's the 2 at the corner of Folly and Camp that you were referring to. And then, yes, sir, this one.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Crane.
Kristen, can you pull up 16 again?
Yes.
And can you please point out, so where is Finn's going to go? Does it show up on one of these parcels?
Finn's, yes, would be right here at this, well,
right there.
Yes.
So, and that's Publix there, the one heading towards Grimble from your point.
Right here. Yes.
Well, what's that
This
building? What's the building going towards Grimble from where Finn's is?
this one.
Yes.
This
The
is
bank.
South
The
Carolina.
bank.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know if it's South Carolina Federal anymore, but
Trying to get my bearings. Got it. Thank you very much. Now I understand the close proximity.
For the record, I'd like to point out that the fact that the city of Charleston may or may not approve another car wash across the street really doesn't really matter to our rules, and we need to decide on our own. Although I love you all.
Well, I would reiterate it has nothing to do with the criteria that need to be met as far as approving or disapproving our case. So thank you for pointing
Yeah.
it out.
Agreed completely.
Let's save our discussion to when it's time for the discussion after a motion has been made.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Strictly a question and answer. So do we have any last question for Kristen before we move on to the applicant?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll call the applicant. I'm not sure if the applicant is available on Zoom or in council chambers. Is the applicant, is Mr. Barry, are you the applicant?
Yes, sir, I am, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks for joining. You have the floor, and you have 10 minutes. And as we get down to the last, if you know, consume the full 10 minutes, I'll put my hand up when you have 30 seconds left. Okay.
Jason,
Okay.
Jason, excuse me. You want to swear the witnesses who are going to testify on those who can hear me?
Yes, please do, Bo. And I'll
Okay.
mute on my end. Thank you.
Is Mr. Barry and Mr. Tar, are they going to testify?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Proceed.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the BZA. I appreciate your willingness to see us. I know this is trying times right now, and everybody's doing the best they can. And I appreciate your opportunity to present via Zoom. With me tonight, Jeremy Tarr is representing Time to Shine, and Edward Oswald is also on the line as well. If you've got any questions of them, and I know Jeremy's got some things he wants to address as well. Staff has done a great job kind of presenting the site, and I want to just draw into a couple additional things, and they've been great to work with. So I appreciate staff's help with all this as well. I'm going to try to share screen, and I hope I don't mess this up, but I'm going to do my best here. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. You know, the one thing I'd like to point out, you know, sometimes car washes get a negative connotation, and there's a ton of different car washes. I want to talk first about our site, and then I want to show you some photos of Time to Shine that was recently constructed in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard to kind of give you a general idea. But as staff mentioned earlier in the presentation, to the north of us is the Tire Choice Auto, and then to the south of us is Folly Road Auto Repair. We're very respectful, and I know what the intent is of the town in the South Village area, and we feel like we'd be a good use to complement the existing uses in this area. Of course, we do have some residents behind us, which we're very mindful of as well, and we've spoken to those residents as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my presentation. Just showing a picture of the Sam Rittenberg site, similar in a lot of ways to this site, and we've got a lot of grand trees that we had to preserve around the site, and we were very sensitive to it. These type washes are not your typical car wash where you've got a manual bay and you wash your boat, you wash your truck full of mud. Again, these tunnel washes, everything is very contained, and it's very efficient, and people actually get memberships and love them. And what I'll tell you is these are, you know, a service for the residents of the area. As you, some discussion has been made earlier, people aren't driving from the city of Charleston to come just wash their car down here. But if people that live around the area, it provides a service to the area. So they're not really traffic generators. They provide a service in the area. Just a couple other photographs, and, you know, architecturally, I know staff has mentioned we'll have to comply with their desire of materials, et cetera. But this is it just gives you an example of what we did over on Folly Road. I mean, on Sam Rittenberg, and you can see some pervious pavers and the pay station coming in. I want to jump now to the site plan, and I put some color on this. Hopefully everybody can see this okay, but I think this helps describe the site a little bit better. I guess the first thing I'll do, there were a couple questions of BZA members, and I'll try to address those first before I get into the site. The question was raised of how far is the building off of the road. Currently, there is a 15-foot buffer along the front. As Kristen mentioned, we're proposing an 8-foot activity path on the front of that buffer. So that leaves us with 7 feet. And then the property line is about 6 feet off of the face of curb of Folly Road. So total, it's about 20.
Excuse me, Mr. Berry. Are you referring to a slide? Because I don't see anything.
And I am so confused because you said 15 feet and I thought it was 16 feet.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to try to share this site plan.
That'll be difficult.
How about now? Can you see?
There you go. There you go. Now you're making
All
sense.
right. All right. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay.
I mean, every foot counts. Give us 18 or 20 feet.
Yes, sir. I totally agree. So, okay, to kind of go back then, the property line out front is about 6 feet off the face of curb of Folly Road. And then we've got a 15-foot buffer inside our property. We're proposing an 8-foot activity path in there. Leaves us about 7 feet of planting area. So we're about 21, 22 feet off of the face of curb of Folly Road, just to give you a reference, point of reference. You know, there was a question raised about the trees along Folly Road. You'll see these dark green circles up near the northern portion of my property. That's 2 of those trees. The other trees, there's 4 trees that fall about right on my building line, which is right on that 15-foot buffer. And unfortunately, those are just too close to the building. We won't be able to maintain those, but we do propose to add additional plantings and a nice vegetative buffer along this frontage, probably more understory materials and shrubs to really accent the building on the site. And then just to hit real quick on the pond, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but we do show a stormwater basin kind of centered on the site. And then I've got a bioswale that's back here at the rear of the site. These two systems will work in tandem. These will only accept water that's coming to us from off-site or some of my site runoff from my parking spaces and drive aisles. Everything with the car wash, though, as far as the water that goes in, pushes back out through the sewer system. And we've got a reclaim system or a reclamation system that I'll talk a little bit more about that actually recycles that water. So it's a very expensive system that goes underground and it recycles that water so we don't have as much water dependence, and we can filter that water out and use about 1/3 of the water as what you would on your standard car wash. So no water and pollutants that come out of that car wash will go into any of these detention basins. Okay, and I know stormwater is a big concern in this area, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later to talk about how we're handling and mitigating it. You know, what I want to say, and Kristen mentioned, the building is located up front, and that's kind of the initiative in this area with the streetscape. What that does, you can faintly see these existing houses that are kind of up underneath my parking area in the middle of the site. So it gives you kind of a point of reference. The good thing about this pushes the building up front. Now this building is about 300 feet to the closest residence behind us. So it pushes that building up front. That also provides, you know, a noise buffer from those residents behind us from the street, because we're right out here on the front as this kind of a screening factor. And all of our activity area with the parking lot is really centered on the middle of the site. And so we keep all of this activity up at the front and in the middle, and that's kind of being sensitive to the neighbors behind us, which we think is important. We really have designed this site. If you'll notice, the dark green circles are the existing trees, and not all of these are grands. We've got 2 grand trees, and we show these red hatched areas. Those are pervious pavers. So we've got pervious pavers in our parking lot, and then adjacent to each one of these trees. And then I've also got a few employee spaces back at the back of the site, and those are pervious pavers as well. The low impact design standards that we use is really to, you know, maintain as much green space on this site as we possibly can, and to preserve all of the existing trees that we possibly can. And we really have designed this site to really work around these trees, and we want to keep these trees healthy. As we mentioned, we've got an arborist contracted, and he'll be contracted throughout the site. And you notice from Sam Rittenberg, we take great care in preserving those trees. The fence in the rear, we've got a 20-foot buffer along the rear of this property, and you can see we're not trying to get too tight up against it. And actually we're 40 feet where this bioswale is in the back. That drive aisle is 40 feet off of this back property line. We agree with staff. We'll put an 8-foot fence up along this back, and we'll also landscape on both sides. What I don't show at this level of site plan, we've been very successful with putting cedars and wax myrtles in these buffers before. They grow fast. They provide a great noise and light mitigation for the residents behind us. And so we plan on lining this whole buffer back in the rear, very heavily vegetated, along with the 8-foot privacy fence. So we really want to maintain that separation between the neighbors and us. Really the only areas that generate any noise, and I know Jeremy wants to talk about that, everything for the business of the car wash is contained internally. And so all the mechanical systems, everything's inside. And then we've got 2 vacuum stations, one here near our dumpster screening, and then one up here at the top of the site. Those will be enclosed and fenced in areas. And that's the vacuum system, and it pipes underground to each one of these booms. And so really the only noise will come there and it'll emit straight up. And so we'll heavily landscape around that and then have the fence as well. You know, I mentioned before, traffic wise, we've got this one curb cut. This is where our current driveway for the site is right now. There's a center median in Folly Road here adjacent to our curb cut. Really the traffic that we're trying to, you know, target is that traffic coming from Folly heading north. And so that's, you know, we feel like this is a great location. It'll not be a traffic increase from the businesses that were there. There was a pet grooming business there and boarding, and then a consignment shop. And again, this is more of a service type business for the residents of this area. It's not going to be drawing people from way off the island coming into it. I wanted to just mention, I mentioned the reclaim system. These are very expensive systems, and I know some of the comments from some of the neighbors with concerns was pollutants and other things. And I want to assure you that this reclaim system will go in the parking lot, underneath the parking lot. It's a series of tanks and oil water separators that filter that water out. And all of that water then gets piped out to the sewer system. I failed to mention with the storm drain system, and I'm sorry, I'll wrap up here. I know I'm getting the signal. This storm drain system will outfall and pipe out to Folly Road. So we will not push any stormwater back to our neighbors. We'll collect everything on site and we will push everything back out to Folly Road. I think I've probably burnt through a lot of my time. I'd like to allow Jeremy a minute if we can, Mr. Chair, just if he's got any thoughts as well.
Yes, quickly. You have about 30 seconds left.
Jeremy, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay, so on the noise side, we do install mufflers on those vacuum producer systems, as well as, like you said, encasing them to try to keep the noise as low as possible. And then, you know, adding on to what he said, everything from a noise standpoint, as well as a soap and water runoff from vehicle standpoint, is all captured inside of that building. We do typically go and put drain cutouts just outside the building, so that way any sort of runoff on a vehicle as it leaves our tunnel, you know, if you've got a truck bed that dumps some water as it pulls out, that gets collected in that drain and then sent back into our tunnel where it's treated through our reclamation system and then put in the sewer.
I have a couple of questions. You said you typically do that. Do you always do that? You didn't say you always do that. You said you typically do that.
Right. Well, we have sites in other states that don't have that. I believe that all of ours in South Carolina do.
We will absolutely do that on this site. Yes, sir. And stormwater requirements will require that as well.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the 10-minute portion.
Oh, no, I do have another question, please, sir.
Hey, one moment, Roy, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
I did afford a few extra minutes because we're the first time here with Zoom. But anyways, while we have the applicants here, we may proceed with some questions and answers. So Roy, would you mind proceeding with your question for the applicant?
Yes, hold on. What about dust? What about excess light?
Jeremy,
you're supposed. So excuse me. So section EC says you shall provide adequate provisions such as setbacks, buffering, including fences and/or landscaping, to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors. Have you addressed all of those, and how have you done that? Please address them serially.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead first. So dust, we have filtration systems in our vacuum separators to ensure that none of that goes into the environment. It's a cloth separator so that anything sucked up into the vacuum system is caught there, and then those are emptied on a daily basis. Excess light, I know that we use a combination of timers and photocells to create redundancy there to make sure that all of our lights come on and shut off at the appropriate times. And they close, once we've closed for business for the day, all lights shut off to make sure that we're not having unnecessary impact on the environment that way.
Can I ask you what time you will shut off?
We close our stores at 9 p.m. during the summer. So usually about 9:30 is how we've got those set to turn off.
Thank you.
And
further, I'm sure you haven't answered all the questions yet. I'm sorry to have disturbed you midway, but go ahead and answer the rest of the issues.
So the other ones were I heard dust, there was glare and noise, and I think he addressed noise. So glare would be another one.
Glare, odor, traffic congestion, and similar factors.
So I would say, Mr. Smith, for both noise and glare, again, we're going to utilize heavy vegetation screening, and we're going to also utilize the 8-foot fence in the back. And so our intent would be to plant sizable cedar trees, wax myrtles, and that will, reduce any impact. And then we've got existing fences on either side of us with the existing businesses. And so, we've got fencing that will address noise and glare that may come off any vehicles. Odor, Jeremy, do y'all have any issues, concerns with odor?
I've never heard any complaints on odor. Typically, a car wash doesn't have a smell per se. And because the vacuum system is self-contained, it doesn't produce any odor either.
Jason, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. And we'll go around. Let's just go around the room with the BZA members. Brooke, any questions for the applicant?
I had some questions about noise and lights, and I honestly think y'all have thoroughly addressed those. It's a beautiful plan. It sounds like y'all have really done your homework on everything. So I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sim, any questions?
Yes, I have two. First question is, what are your hours of operation?
It varies depending on season. During the summer, we're open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then during the winter, as it gets dark sooner, we close at 8 p.m. instead. The only exception to that is on Sundays, we don't open until noon in order to provide minimal impact on anybody that might be wishing to go to church in the area.
Okay. My second question just
sorry
about that. If it pops back up, I'll raise my hand.
David, any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Berry, can you put up your schematic again, please?
Sure.
And while we're doing that, you boys look like you know what you're doing. Obviously, you're making this, or you want to build this to make a profit. So you must have figured out how many cars you need per day to make a profit. In the summertime, what is your estimate of the number of vehicles that will be coming into this business?
I would say, obviously, they mature with time. A typical day in the summer, a car wash will run somewhere around 200 to 300 cars, depending on the site.
All right. And is that based upon your traffic on Savannah Highway?
Yes, sir.
Um, Very good. Now, you'll agree with me that people going to the beach and back, you might have a little bit higher traffic, but you think at some point 200 to 300 vehicles per day, right?
I think that's, yes, sir.
Very good. Now, Mr. Barry, help me out. I'm looking at the bottom. I see where the cars enter.
Yes, sir.
And if you'll take that cursor and if you'll follow it to the next arrow, so they'll drive around this roadway, correct?
Yes, sir. Right.
And
Correct.
these are 4 employee parking areas right here?
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. And about how many employees to fully staff this business in a normal workday?
I'd say on a typical day, 3 or 4.
3 or 4. And they would be 3 or 4 up until closing?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Mr. Barry, you then drive around and I see 3 little cars there, look like little toll booth stations. Tell me what this is.
Yes, sir. Good point, Mr. Savage. And I should have mentioned this. So what happens here, these are pay stations and they've got a swing arm gate that's here. But they kind of come up to this pay station and they've got a couple different kiosks and they got a couple different options to pay. Some folks, Time to Shine will sell memberships. And so they'll have a reoccurring membership. They can come as often as they like. And they've got a membership card and this gate will just let them up. And so the gates are sequenced and it lets one at a time come through and then they come through into the tunnel.
Very good. And how long does it take one car to go from the entrance to the exit? Or does that depend on the type of wash they get?
It's obviously much quicker if they've got a club membership, because then as soon as they pull up to the pay station, it reads the tag and they go. But we generally figure a 2 to 3 minute average.
Okay. All right. So then they exit. Mr. Barry, put your cursor at the exit. So I know that we're talking. Okay. Now I see that they can then exit the business, correct? And drive down Folly, or they can go into this parking area here, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And if they wanted to vacuum, I take it they would go into those bays that appear to be pink in color with the pavers?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Now those are vacuums, right? And as I understand it, the motor isn't on each vacuum. There's just a suction hose in each bay, right? The vacuum is at the bottom.
That's correct. Yes, sir. Right where my cursor is now.
I see it.
Yep.
You guys are smart guys too. What's the noise decibel on that vacuum? What's the decibel level?
I'd have to Google that. I don't know off the top of my head.
All right. All right. So then they go into that bay and they come out. All right. I think I understand your schematic. So this blue holding tank, that's not going to be an open pond. That's something that's underground, correct?
It will be, that will be an open pond. You know, whether it's a dry basin or it's a wet retention basin that we have a fountain in or something, just, you know, we've got to get a little farther along with it, but that'll be all stormwater, on-site stormwater collection.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the schematic. So you've answered the number of cars. When the business shuts down, it's 9:30 on a Saturday night on Folly Road. Obviously, you're going to have some type of security lights on the premises, correct?
Are you talking about out in the parking area?
Yeah.
You know, that historically is dependent on the area. There's some more residential areas where we turn off the lights much sooner to not, you know, hurt the residents.
I know about the business lights. What I'm talking about are security lights. For instance, like a street light. Because in that schematic, you have 4 employee parking lots way off of Folly Road in the back of a dark corner. And I take it you don't have a gate on the entrance of this car wash. What I want to know is what stops 5 or 6 kids from saying, let's meet at the Time to Shine car wash. Let's smoke a little dope because no one's going to see us in the corner. So, I mean, you know, I'm trying to figure out what your security system is there, because I'm not stupid, because you don't want anybody to mess up your property and you don't want anybody to, to vandalize the thing. And you know, what we're concerned about is the safety of the residents here, because you have a residential area to the back. Another thing, the reason that I asked this question is, you know, I'm an old guy, my hearing's bad, but I don't play my radio nearly as loud as some of the younger people. And what I don't want is the neighbors right here complaining because there's 4 kids in these employee parking lots with the music thumping very loud. So my question is, are you going to have security lights? And if so, how are you going to screen that glare? Or how are you going to stop malfeasance? Because your business is going to be one of the first that is close to the road, right? Because you're adopting this Rethink Folly Road. So all your parking is going to be in the back where police officers going down Folly Road can't really see. And it's just an ideal place for people to congregate. So I'm just trying to figure out your thought process there.
Yeah. If I may, so two things we do is when we close, and Mr. Barry, if you'll help me with this, where that stop is by Folly Road, which is both the entrance and the exit, typically the employees will block that off at 9 p.m. When it is time for us to close, we will close off that entrance and exit with cones or a chain or something high visibility that people don't run through. And then as they go to leave the property, they'll move those things out of the way, pull their vehicles out, and then replace them behind them so that the property is blocked off. And then we put up somewhere around 36 cameras that are day and night capable, and then run an alarm system on both the building and the pay stations. And that way, if there is anything being tampered with, we can remotely check our cameras, deploy the police if necessary, or if it's just the case of a faulty alarm, we can let them know that there's nothing going on and we'll go reset it for them.
All right. Very good. And that was a comprehensive answer. Do we still have a notion on whether or not there are going to be street lights out there or security floodlights that keep that area illuminated that might impact the residents to the rear of the business? And if you say, I don't know, I mean, that's,
yeah,
I
don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Savage, we probably will submit a photometric plan. We typically do, have some site lighting on the site. What I will tell you is the photometrics on it will be, adhere to all town standards, and it'll just be a downcast light. So it won't be a halo type light that broadcasts out. It'll be a downcast light and just for security measures. So we'll be very sensitive to where those are placed on the site, and they'll just broadcast in to just have security. And like Jeremy mentioned, they're heavily monitored. And he's got employees there, during all his business hours. So they monitor if there's no vagrants or anything kind of loitering around on the site.
all right. Mr. Chairman, I think those are the questions that I had for the applicant. You're on mute.
I have but 2 more questions for you. In our the packet that was given to us, staff has, if we were to approve, we should consider the following conditions, and staff has 8 conditions listed here. If we were to approve it, are you aware of the 8 conditions, and do you have any objections to the 8 conditions?
No, sir, Mr. Chair, and I failed to mention that, I'm sorry, earlier, but we've talked to staff. We wholeheartedly agree with all of the conditions, and we fully intend to meet all of those requirements. Over.
Okay, and my last question for you is, if there was an additional 9th condition added, and that 9th condition was right in, so a right turn only to get in and a right turn only to get out onto Folly Road, would you be opposed to that 9th condition if that was a critical condition for BZA acceptance?
And I'll let Jeremy address as well. One thing we'll have to do is go to DOT. Obviously, we're going to have some modifications to the existing curb cut, but it would be something that's their curb cut out in their right of way. And so if we would propose anything there, that would have to be something DOT would bless off on. And Jeremy, I don't know if that concerns or has concerns for you guys as far as operations of the facility.
Yeah, operationally, I'm not opposed. After standing out on the property and just looking at the traffic flow, I definitely understand the concern if somebody's trying to make a left-hand turn that close to a traffic light, crossing 2 lanes of fast-moving traffic, that could definitely be a dangerous situation. So I think that makes perfect sense to have a right in, right out.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for bearing with us, through our questions. I appreciate that. All right, last call from BZA. Sim, you have your hand up. So
yes,
question.
I remember my question. This is only for automobile servicing. there's no boat traffic, no boats or anything like that, RVs or anything like, it's just passenger cars, SUVs and things like that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Parrish. It's a conveyorized car wash, so boats don't work, dually trucks, anything, bigger than a typical person's vehicle wouldn't even fit. So this is typically just for people that live in the area to wash their vehicles.
Thank you, sir.
With that, thank you both. We'll turn this over to the public comment portion, and we will look to Town Hall council chambers. Is there anyone present at Town Hall who wishes to speak in support of this request?
There's no one present.
Okay, is anyone present on the Zoom software who would like to speak in support of their request?
We do. We have, it looks like 2 folks. The first one is Mr. Jim Bobo.
Okay, so with that, Mr. Wilson, will you swear in Mr. Bobo? And then Mr. Bobo, once you are sworn in, you will have 2 minutes. And I will raise my hand when the 2 minutes is up.
Okay. Mr. Bobo, do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Jim Bobo, and I represent my mother who owns the property, and she and my father developed those properties. Well, they didn't develop them. They converted them to commercial use back in 2005. Actually, I was very impressed with Kevin's presentation. So besides supporting the plan, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bobo. And
You're
did we have another person that was going to speak in support of the application?
We do. Mr. Edward Oswald, I believe he's a panelist.
Okay, Mr. Oswald, Mr. Wilson will swear you in, and then your 2-minute timer will start.
Mr. Oswald, do you solemnly swear to or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, the board and Mr. Chairman. I would just like to speak in favor of this project. I want to point out to the board that yes, you guys are the town of James Island, and you are not the city of Charleston. It's not this board's authority or purpose in this to determine which businesses along that corridor are financially or economically viable. I think this is a great use for this property. It is sandwiched directly between 2 automotive uses. These are 2 dilapidated, what I would call dilapidated houses. I think Mr. Bobo would agree that these 2 houses are like a number of houses on the Folly Road corridor that are no longer residential, but aren't quite commercial and are sort of stuck in this no man's land. And these 2 are prime examples of that. And what it has created is commercial properties that are hard to rent. And I think this is a great use for these 2 properties, again, right between 2 automotive uses that are already there and will continue to be there because they're doing great there. And I think this would be a great complement to these 2 businesses and this commercial corridor and intersection node. So I would say this is a great use and I'm in favor of it. Thank you for your time. And it's been 2 hours now, and you guys do put in a lot of time and effort on these, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oswald. Ashley, do we have anyone else on the roster who will speak in support of the applicant?
We don't have anyone else listed to speak in support.
Okay, at this time, then we will ask if there's anyone in opposition to the application, and we will start first with council chambers. Is there anyone in the council chambers who would like to speak in opposition to the application?
No one present.
Okay, and then we'll move to the Zoom roster. And Ashley, do we have anyone who would like to speak in opposition?
We do. We have 2 residents that have signed up to speak in opposition. The first one is Miss Sonia Chiaritini.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I do have you. So Mr. Wilson will swear you in, and then you have up to 2 minutes to speak.
Good evening. Ma'am, do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all for hearing me. I'm a property owner behind, I guess, the back left-hand corner if you're facing the car wash. I'd like to preface my speaking saying I am a commercial real estate broker and I'm absolutely for commercial development. And I think Mr. Berry's plan is very nice. But I do have a problem on my property on Jeffords Street concerning water. And we all know that when we put concrete on dirt, you know, it's water displacement. Right now, it's very serious. I don't know if the tire shop, which is maybe at like 4 or 5 feet higher than my property, addressed it or maintains their water drainage, but I have a severe water problem when it rains. My concern is that a car wash is additional water. I am concerned that additional concrete on the property will cause additional water drainage on my property. And again, I think the plan is beautiful and I am all for the development. My concern is drainage.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Ashley, do we have a second one who is?
May I ask a question?
Not at this time. This is the public comment portion.
Yes, we do. We have City Councilwoman Carol Jackson.
Okay, Ms. Jackson, I believe you have already been sworn in, so the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you on this item. I'm a resident of James Island. I live at 1461 Patterson Avenue, and I'm honored to currently be serving as the Charleston City Council elected representative for City District 12. My district is primarily along the east side of Folly Road, running between Ellis Creek and Folly River, with some exceptions. Obviously, I am very close to a lot of the town of James Island properties and representing residents of the city, as well as a few of the city residents who would be in District 6, represented by Council Member Dudley Gregory. I'm very familiar with this whole stretch of Folly Road. I'm proud to serve as the city's representative on the Rethink Folly Road Steering Committee. And we've obviously been studying this in correspondence to the vision plan that was created several years ago by the citizenry. So on that basis, I am speaking for myself, yet also from my position on City Council. I do applaud the Town of James Island Planning and Zoning Code that makes this particular use in the South Village section of the Folly Road overlay that you are requiring a special exception. And it's an aside as far as tonight's meeting, but frankly, I will work hard during our own city's pending 2020 comprehensive plan adoption to make sure that we have the same type of opportunity to look individually at uses that are not necessarily master planned for this part of James Island. So I am asking that you deny this application. I know that Time to Shine is a very state-of-the-art, well-run operation. I have no problems with their actual company or the way that they would represent themselves, but I feel like it's a use that we no longer really desire in this part of James Island. And I would ask that you look most closely at the traffic impact and also the nearby uses that are residential. We know that the east side of Folly Road is mostly designed to retain the residential character of the properties that are literally just one lot behind Folly Road. And that is not the case for the 2 car washes that are going on. It's a by right use for the city on the west side of Folly Road, where there's already a lot of more dense commercial development. Thank you very much. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on the roster to speak in opposition?
No, we do not.
Okay. At this time, I would like the record to reflect via email. We received 1 letter in support of this application, and then we received 16 letters in opposition to this application. And so at this time, Mr. Berry or Mr. Tarr, you do have a 2-minute time limit for a rebuttal, just to respond to any of the opposition you've heard. And I'll start the 2-minute timer when you begin speaking.
Okay, again, Kevin Berry, I'll just try to tackle, I know Ms. Sonia's comment earlier on stormwater. We will take an all-inclusive look at stormwater in this area. I've talked to Mr. Bobo. He's given me some additional insight of other off-site contributions. And what I will tell the BZA and staff, we will absolutely control every bit of stormwater on our site. We will control it, detain it, and release it to the front. We're not going to push any stormwater on our neighbors. And if they've got stormwater coming in, we'll try to help her and see if we can mitigate some of her concerns. For Ms. Jackson, again, traffic, I think I heard, I don't feel like this type of use is a traffic generator. We just service the residents in that area. And I know the chair had mentioned a right in, right out, which will even more so, just limit our use. And I think we're willing to do that. As far as the use, we feel like it's a good use. I feel like it's situated well between the existing uses, and we feel like we'd be a good neighbor. Again, we're over 300 feet from the back of this building to our closest resident neighbor structure behind. Jeremy, I don't know if you've got anything to add, maybe out of time.
Yeah, I thought those were good, thoughtful comments.
You have about 30 seconds if you'd like.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, at this time, we'll close the hearing to the public and ask for a motion, and we need a second to either approve with conditions or disapprove the application.
Excuse me. Is it just the BZA now? Because I still see Mr. Berry and Mr. Tarr.
They are allowed to be in this conversation. They cannot apply. They cannot comment.
They cannot
Yes,
contribute.
Yeah, anyone can view and listen to our motion, but this is just between BZA now.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to approve this motion with the conditions outlined by staff.
I'll second for discussion.
I'm sorry, did I hear you say I move not to approve?
Approve.
You
to
moved
approve.
To approve.
Approve.
Yes,
With
so I
conditions.
have a motion by Sim, approve the application with conditions outlined by staff, and a second by Brooke. Okay, we are open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to start by saying that I wanted to talk to the fellow about a few things, but I was cut off. And so I wanted to discuss about noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, and traffic congestion, but I wasn't allowed to. And so we didn't discuss those things. And so I think those are a really problem. And because of that, I would vote against it. These have not been discussed, and they have not been decided. And so this discussion, this portion has not happened.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that the applicant commented on each one of the points that Mr. Smith had brought up: the dust control, the noise, the light pollution, traffic, and all that in a very good manner and very detailed.
Thank you, Roy, and thank you, Sim.
Mr. Chairman, I have some comments. While it's a beautiful plan and a great service for James Island, there were also some good points made, such as the vehicle service businesses on either side. And I hesitate to call them derelict properties, but they could stand a lot of improvement. However, what we have to look at is the criteria set, set forth for BZA. Excuse me. Need to wet my throat. After reviewing our criteria, I do not believe that the applicant meets criteria A. I don't believe the application is consistent with the Town of James Island Comprehensive Plan as implemented through the CC District and the Folly Road Corridor Overlay District. I also have concerns about criteria B, the subject property being bordered by residential property to the east. We also had a resident speaking their concerns. We've had many cases over the years of businesses coming in that back up to our residential streets along Folly Road. And sometimes we can put conditions on maybe if they meet the criteria to make it happen. You know, y'all have done a whole lot of work, your preparation, your idea. I was super impressed with both of you guys as far as, you know, your enthusiasm and just your whole business model, both Jeremy and Kevin. But we have to look at it, you know, from we're a quasi judicial body, and we look at it through legal eyes, meeting these criteria. And for me, it doesn't meet A and B. I also have concerns about C. However, I feel like you guys could probably fix that, especially adopting the conditions by staff, but you have to meet all of them. And so for that reason, I plan to vote against it. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Brooke. David, any discussion or comments?
Yes, now that I know that Mr. Berry and Mr. Tarr are listening, I want to say your presentation was excellent. Your site plan was excellent. You got a good design going on. And in the back of my head, it was, hey, after this meeting, get with these guys and figure out how you can get in on one of these in Hollywood, South Carolina. So that, you know, the car wash that you proposed could not have been proposed any better. But as Ms. Lyon indicated, here there is an application for a special exemption to the zoning and growth plan of the Town of James Island. That is a plan that other businesses have relied on and have invested in, and the residents make purchasing decisions based upon it. When someone requests a special exception, the burden is on them to establish that each of the criteria necessary to allow for the exemption has been met. At present, and I haven't heard the discussion from all of the other members, I am tied up on criteria A at this point. That the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the character of the Rethink Folly Road. And where I'm caught up a little bit is number one on the safety aspect of it. Now, members of the board, I asked what is the anticipated traffic on a given day, and if I think I heard something in the range of maybe about 300 cars. Assuming each car has 10 linear feet, that's 3,000 linear feet of vehicles. Now, we all know that when a car wash opens, there's not a big rush at 7 in the morning. That's just not when people wash their car. There tend to be 2 busy periods of time in the day. Those are going to be 2 busy periods of time where there's 3,000 linear feet of vehicles trying to get from Folly Road into this location at the same time that other vehicles are getting out. In a different perspective, if there are 300 vehicles and the car wash is about 3.5 minutes for a car to get through, you're looking at about 1,050 minutes. Again, assuming that the peak times are a total of 7 hours, you're going to be looking at about 25 cars per hour at the dense time trying to get in and out of this location. That volume far exceeds any volume of the contemplated residential business nature contemplated by the plan. And you'll remember the plan had 5 guideposts, and one of which was safety. And Mr. Chairman, you did a very nice job trying to see if there was a way to work around that with the right turns only. If the board does decide to approve, I will not vote for that approval without that turn right. That by far. But in addition to the safety guideposts, there were also the guideposts of being synced. And if we remember, the town should consider how prior decisions by other jurisdictions have already impacted the corridor. Now, whether or not the city of Charleston approves or disapproves of something, that's of no business to us. But under our plan, we are required to look at the syncing of our plan. And if we're going to have 1 car wash here with 2 car washes on the other side of the street, it's reminiscent of, I think it's the intersection of Camp and Folly where there's a gas station on each side. Remember, we have 2 car washes at Camp and Folly, which are 1.2 miles away. We have the applicant's proposal, and within the applicant's proposal, if granted, there would be the applicant's car wash and the potential for 3 others. So I think there's a problem. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me, but I think there's a problem with the syncing component of the plan. And interconnectivity. Do you remember our plan contemplates we want those buildings on the outside by the road, but we want the businesses to be interconnected on the inside because the whole purpose is to reduce the flow of traffic on Folly Road. When do people wash their cars? In the summertime. When do people go to the beach? In the summertime. Okay. For those reasons, I do not believe at present the applicant has met the criteria to warrant us doing away with the comprehensive plans that we have in place. If we are to grant this exception, then I don't see any other situation where we could deny a special exception. That's my initial thought until I hear from other members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I would say that there was always be another opportunity to deny a special exception dependent upon the unique circumstances. We should not deny, do away with that.
Thank you all. My thoughts are that are similar to most points. You know, we have 6 criteria we have to meet. I have concerns with 1, that being the comprehensive plan. And these were my thoughts on that. And I'm looking at it too, not from a car wash standpoint, but from a vehicle service standpoint. There in this area, I'm concerned with an oversaturation of vehicle service. The 2 immediately neighboring parcels to this car wash are vehicle service parcels. just down the road, still within this village, the new John Harris Body Shop, also a vehicle service. So that is contrary to varied development. Varied development is what the comprehensive plan promotes. And so I'm worried that vehicle services will dominate this area instead of varied development, such as offices, large offices, small offices, retail, professional services, that sort of thing. So that's really where I am struggling, is I think it does not meet it's not consistent with the town of James Island's comprehensive plan. I think that regarding the other 5 points, I think there are ways at which we could find that it would meet those 5 points. So I think as I sit here right now, I am intending to vote against this motion. And I also would like to second that if I felt like this motion were to pass, for me to vote in favor of it or to sway my vote, only what possible avenue I could ever see myself voting, and this does not mean I would vote in favor of it, but I would like to see a 9th condition, and that would be the right turn only out and the right turn only in. So those are the reasons I don't think it meets condition A. I don't think it's consistent with the town of James Island comprehensive plan. I think it will lead to an oversaturation of vehicle service use. And the reason I think that also is because we do need to be cognizant of what the city of Charleston is doing on Folly Road on James Island.
Unfortunately.
Any other comments from the group?
I don't see where we can kind of deny this based on the fact that the possibility that the city is going to allow 2 additional car washes on the other side of the street. I don't see where anything wrong with what has been presented by staff, myself. I do want to, and just like you said, Jason, that 9th criteria about the right turn in, right turn out only, and one other change to the conditions.
I personally don't see where what the city's doing has anything to do with anything. I mean,
I agree.
we're talking about that, I think, because, all these car washes and so many down the street. And there's also Burt's Auto Works, by the way, Jason, too. You were talking about all the different auto service places. And I think Burt's is also in this same village area. But and I guess we got off on the city's car washes because I know a lot of the letters against it had, raised that issue for us. I mean, I hate not to get a nice business car wash for everybody that we all might be able to use and enjoy and so forth. But it doesn't have anything to do with the city, in my opinion. It has to do with our comprehensive plan, and then I guess the sinking is important. Y'all had addressed that. Anyway, I shared what I felt about the criteria earlier, but I did want to make that clear because I know I was one of the ones that got off on the city car washes a little while ago, and I just want to make it very clear that has absolutely nothing to do with my opinion and my vote. Thanks.
I'd like to add also that I think it has nothing to do with what the city is doing and the city car washes, whether they actually pass or not. I have no idea. But the fact that what we're doing is our own deal. And so we have to judge it on the requirements that we have. And that's it. I mean, it's our requirements for our town.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Thank you, Brooke. Any last discussion before we call for a vote?
Jason, excuse me.
Yes, Tim.
I would like to make a motion to amend the conditions. The first condition, number 8, the hours of operation as stated by the conditions from staff says the business will be open from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. That the applicant has stated that the operation hours that they generally work is from 7 to 9:30. That we amend the number 8 condition to reflect those hours.
Second.
We had a motion to amend condition 8 and a second from David. So we will vote right now only on the motion to amend the original motion. And so this motion to amend will simply restrict the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Ms. Simmons, would you give us a roll call? And this is simply to vote for the motion to amend.
Okay. Commissioner Lyon,
Aye.
Commissioner Parrish,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Chairman Gregory.
Yes. Okay, so the original motion has been amended. So let me just restate it for the record. The motion before us is the BZA will approve the special exception for the placement of an express service automatic car wash in the community commercial district located at 1312 Folly Road and 136 Folly Road with 8 conditions. And at this point, I should read the 8 conditions for the record.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make another motion to add your number 9, the right in and right out entrance access to the property.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion on the motion to amend, which is add the 9th condition, which is a right in and right out only?
No.
Okay, Ms. Simmons, would you do a roll call for the motion to amend?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Lyon,
Yes.
Commissioner Parrish,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Gregory.
Yes. Okay, so the motion to amend passes. Okay, so I'll restate the original motion that's now before us with conditions, of which now there are 9. The board approves the special exception request for the replacement of an express service automatic car wash in the community commercial district with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements, the applicant owner shall install tree barricades around the grand and protected trees on the property as described in the town's ordinance. The width of the 8-foot multi-use path on submitted site plan shall be increased as such as possible while maintaining landscape separation from the road and maintaining at least 1 row of vegetative buffer between the building and path. Number 3, a plan to expand stacking spaces in the event of traffic, parking, and stacking congestion shall be submitted and approved by the town prior to obtaining a zoning permit for the proposed site improvements. Number 4, an 8-foot wooden privacy fence shall be installed along the entire rear perimeter and anywhere fence is labeled on submitted site plan. Number 5, architectural plans shall be subject to the discretion of the town as to whether architectural guidelines and development standards have been followed. Number 6, the site plan is submitted to all supplemental stormwater design standards adopted by the town of James Island. Number 7, Special exception for service vehicle use of automatic express car wash is contingent on submittal and approval of lot line abandonment by planning staff. Number 8, commercial uses shall be limited to the hours of between 7:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m.
Correction, 7 a.m.
Condition 8, correction. Commercial uses shall be limited to the hours between 7 a.m. and 9:30 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Motion, condition number 9. The entrance and exit for the car wash shall be limited to right in and right out turns only. Okay, that's the motion before us with the 9 conditions. Ms. Simmons, will you do a roll call for the vote, please?
Okay. Commissioner Lyon,
No.
Commissioner Parrish,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
No.
Commissioner Smith,
You're on mute.
he's muted.
Roy, you're muted.
Let's proceed because we only need a simple majority.
Okay, Chairman Gregory,
No.
okay, he's unmuted now. Did you want to go back?
Roy, what is your vote?
Aye.
So that is 3 nays and 2 ayes. Is that correct, Ms. Simmons?
That's correct.
Okay. So the motion does not pass.
Could you repeat that? You broke up.
Votes were against it. 2 votes were for it. The motion does not pass and the application is denied. The motion was made by Sim, seconded by Brooke. There were 2 amendments that were voted on, and we had 3 votes against it and 2 votes for. The legal reasons were that it did not meet all of the criteria, all 6 of the criteria set forth by our ordinance. And in particular, during discussion, it was predominantly felt that the application did not meet criteria A. For the applicant, thank you for the application. The final decision will be mailed to you within 10 working days, and they may contact planning, and you may contact planning and zoning staff with any questions about the denial. At this time, I have our next meeting is August 18th, 2020. Kristen, do you know if that meeting will be going forward?
We have, the deadline was Friday and we did not receive any applications, so we won't have a meeting in August.
Okay, no meeting in August.
Mhm.
If there's no further business, this meeting of the Town of James Island Board of Zoning Appeals stands adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Good
Thank
to see
you all,
everyone.
everybody. Yes, definitely. Good to see
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank
Great.
you, David. Nice to
Y'all
meet you.
take care. Everybody stay healthy.
Okay, bye.
Too. Bye-bye.
Bye.